I have been a filmmaker for, I guess, 30 years. I started out as a still photographer back in 1972 and moved into shooting film and then later into shooting video and now digital data, both on the cinematography side and on the still photography side. I've created a series of field guides for cinematographers to high-end digital cinema cameras that basically provide everything you need to know about using a particular camera. In the last year, I finally started shooting digital. I don't believe in the concept of latitude. I think that latitude is a false assumption on the part of photographers and cinematographers. There are consequences to not, having the right exposure. What we try and do is test the limits. I'm trying to push the limits of what the dynamic range of the camera are, find where those boundaries are. We set up a situation, that particular image, we use the same scene for two cameras, for Panasonic's VariCam and also Panasonic's SDX 900, which is the other camera that we were doing at the same time. So we use the same image for both, though the dynamic range and the ability of the VariCam to capture the image had an 11-stop range versus the SDX, which had a 9-stop range. We set basically a light level and a stop that we were going to work at that matched for HD lenses. The wider end of the aperture range is where you need to work because of circles of confusion and because you want to have a very sharp image, or as sharp as you can get without adding sharpness to the picture. We, I believe, set the stop at like f4, and then did little general area lighting. We did a soft box on the talent, and then we did spots on the white area, in contrast to what you would normally do, to increase the range until we got to a point where we could no longer capture any detail by altering settings in the camera. I like the fact that I have both, that I have an all-in-one meter. When you're trying to, set lighting, an incident meter is important. And then when we're trying to measure dynamic range and get exposure values on different parts of the picture, I need a spot meter. Flash doesn't really isn't particularly important in cinematography because it's not used except maybe as a special effect. But it's nice having that for my still side. I suppose the other thing too is, compared to some of the meters I've used in the past, the current one that I'm using has, greater sensitivity and can go lower, which is important, for us. The other thing I like about it is the ability to have two ISO ratings and to add filtration, and factor that in without having to do the math. The nice thing about having a meter is the fact that it then becomes a standard, and it doesn't matter what the camera you're using is. The more precise you are about exposure, the better your results are.